Hello, I'm Jerry Lintner, and this is State of the Town, a monthly show when we sit with our selectman, first selectman, Mary Glassman, to get caught up to date on the state of the town. And you know why I stumbled there? I lost my train of thought for a moment because I was going to say we're so lucky to have such a great first selectman.
Thank you.
So anyhow, was my thought. I've said it. That's that.
Thank you, Jerry.
And Mary, thank you for taking the time. This is a change of venue.
It is
for us.
Thank you, and thanks SCTV for inviting us down here today.
Well, yeah, we were, and if you don't mind, if I just take a little minute for a public invitation here, opportunity for people. The reason we're here is because the number of volunteers we have at SCTV, it's like the Yukon women. You know, they are great, but the bench is thin. So when people have personal conflicts or they become ill, it's hard to keep all of the programs going. So the individual, Althea, who usually works with us in the town hall, so we're right at the spot if an emergency call comes in, wasn't going to be able to make it. So the plea that I would like to make, I mean, my involvement in a number of ways has been 20 years now, and my motivation is when a town gets a certain size, and a lot of people work outside of it, it's hard to maintain a sense of community. And this is Simsbury Community Television. And for those who want to maintain that, this is an avenue for them to stay in contact. For that to work effectively, for those of you who have some time, and it can be very flexible, it'd be wonderful if you'd call SCTV and ask if there's a need for volunteers. And there is. And plus, you'll learn new skills, you know, and all of the technicalities. So their number is 860-658-1720. 658-1720. Come on, hop on, join the crew. It's great fun.
It is. And if I could just give a plug to you, Jerry, for your dedication, and Karen and everyone here down at SCTV and Althea, all the volunteers. You provide a wonderful public service. It's really the best way for our residents to know what's happening in town, to give them access to our meetings, that they, in the privacy of their own home, they can find out what we're voting on, what our public hearings are about. And so thank you and SCTV for what you do for the community. We're very grateful.
Well, thank you.
There you go.
No, it's a great place. It's been very, very gratifying. They do a good job. So talking about keeping up to date with what's happening around town, we've had sunny days, cold weather, storm on its way, which brings up two subjects. Let's deal on the sunny one first. What's this I hear about going solar or?
Yeah, so there's a lot happening down at Town Hall. We're getting things done and moving things forward. We're hard at work on budgets. One of our initiatives this year is to go green. And during these dark winter months, it's nice to think about spring and think about.
How does one go green?
Well, we're trying to promote solar energy. And the town has worked with the Clean Energy Task Force, which is a group of volunteers, another great aspect of our community with so many people who have skills who are working with us. We have a number of residents who work with our staff to put an application in for solar energy. If the town gets the application, and we should hear shortly, it would allow us to go out to bid on solar products and solar energy for our residents to purchase. And so what we would do is get a discount rate that our residents, should they want to take part in it, they could buy solar panels for their homes at a reduced price. So we're really excited. We'll know more in the coming days. And if we were to receive the applications, of course, very competitive, but we think we did a good job putting the application in. And I want to put a plug in for our resident, Mark Scully, who worked very closely with us on the application. If we do get the grant, that means that we'll be having a number of workshops and reaching out to the community to educate people about how solar might be an option for them. And then if it's totally voluntary, but if they want to participate, they'll be able to access the costs at a reduced rate. So we're really excited about that.
Well, for a moment, what I thought you meant when you said going green. Now, last month, when I came up with an idea on how to use the Hartford's property, and let's put a big fence around it. Now this fits right in because it's both green and it is both addressing shortages. And I mentioned Colorado, now that they have not only approved medical marijuana, but recreational marijuana, they've run out of marijuana. So then I said,
There you go.
we could have fields, with a concertina wire right around the Hartford.
Well,
and guess what?
And since we last spoke, Simsbury was selected as one of 4 medical marijuana facilities in the state. Simsbury was chosen as one of the first towns out of 16 applications. And we've had a lot of feedback from folks, and so maybe it's worth taking a minute right now just to talk about why Simsbury and what was the process.
Well, the fields aren't going to be outside.
No,
right? It's
I
like
think
in a greenhouse.
exactly. So that when the legislature approved the medical marijuana facilities for Connecticut in 2012, I directed staff to talk to the land use commissions to find out what Simsbury's position was going to be on it. We actually had looked at moratoriums and had given the zoning commission, which is elected, separate body elected. And that's important because the Board of Selectmen were so visible that most folks think that everything runs through the Board of Selectmen, when in fact it doesn't.
Right.
And under our law in our town, all of the land use decisions are made by an elected board, zoning commissioners and planning commissioners. So when the law was passed, we immediately went to the zoning commission, gave them some options. One was to put a moratorium on both production facilities and dispensaries. The production facilities are the grow facilities, and the dispensaries are where the consumers will actually purchase the medical production facility products. And the zoning commission decided not to post a moratorium. I think West Hartford did put a moratorium in, but they opted instead to allow a regulation which would require any such facility be in a commercial or industrial area. That went to a public hearing. There was only one person spoke at that public hearing, and that was with regard to traffic circulation. The zoning commission did pass the regulation. The following fall of 2013, in fact, we did have an application for a production facility from Curaleaf, and you'll be hearing more about that company later. They had to go through a very exhaustive state regulatory process as well as local zoning process. There was another public hearing to talk about Curaleaf, and that regulation, that facility was approved. The state and the governor just announced that Curaleaf was selected as one of 4 sites, and so Simsbury will be one of the first sites. It's important to note that we had public input, but also I directed the chief of police and to look at some of the facilities. And in Simsbury, the production facility is going to be very well secure. There's a number of secure.
It's already in existence, right? The building was.
Yes, there's a building that's
before.
being used right now as an insurance company. It's off of West Street. It's going through renovations right now, and it'll be very heavily regulated, and it will not be open to the public. So there'll be about $2 million worth of investment in the production facility, which will bring some tax dollars to Simsbury. So we're closely monitoring the production facility. It is legal. It's legal in Simsbury. The zoning commissioner, the elected officials have spoken, and so the role of the Board of Selectmen is to make sure that, and my role will be make sure that this facility is secure and meets all local and state regulations. So we'll work closely on that as well.
Well, I think it's a big plus. I mean, separate from what people's opinions, whether or not marijuana for medical use should be legalized. And for me, I mean, if it treats people and doctors say so and it's legal, then, it's got to be manufactured someplace. And no doubt here, it'll be more secure than it would any. I'm not going to name other towns, but this is going to be secure.
Yeah, and I think it's important that conversation was done at the state level. So there were a lot of scientific information and testimony. There was a very lengthy process, and there was enough scientific evidence to present it to the legislature and the governor that it was legalized. So we'll be closely monitoring it. I think what's happening in Simsbury is we have really implemented a very proactive approach to economic development. So we didn't sit back and wait to see if anyone came in with an application. We brought that issue to the Zoning Commission before we had an application.
Right, right.
So the Zoning Commission actually had an opportunity to choose whether they wanted to have a moratorium or they wanted to implement regulations before there was even an application
Right.
On the books. And I think that's our role as elected officials, is to put Simsbury in the best position we can to bring tax dollars in to pay for our services. And we've had some wonderful results as a result of our proactive efforts.
Well, yeah, and I know you're not taking credit for all of this because you say it is a shared responsibility, but the change from years back on how applicants, any business involved, on an exploratory basis or whatever, that has been so streamlined.
Yes.
And the communication between different departments, between different committees, commissions, there's talk ahead of time, so these people can get a pretty good idea of what the time frame for approval is going to be, and now it's acceptable, and they know, okay, I meet these guys, the decision will be made then. And then
Exactly, and that, streamlining the staff reviews so that an applicant can come in and have an informal conversation with the town planning director, the town engineer, and know what the process is and get an initial reaction. Some businesses are just not a good fit for Simsbury.
Right.
And so on the staff level, we can inform a developer what we think the strengths of an application are, what the weaknesses are. The applicant then has to take that right to the commissions, because the Planning and Zoning Commission have the ultimate decision. But that process has really resulted, I think, in better applications coming forward. We can explain what the timeline is, so developers will know what the process is and make some decisions. And it's resulted in all the vision planning that we did about what we want our center to look like has really attracted development. So we're not just sitting back saying, oh, we hope someone comes. We're out there marketing and putting a marketing plan in place.
And I see this, and it's been puzzling to me. Like, there's so many weekly papers now, which I enjoy. I mean,
Yes.
Sometimes it's the same article, the different places, and maybe that's why it seems like this thing just keeps getting repeated and repeated. Maybe it's the same article in 3 different weeklies or whatever, and then 2 weeks the same. But I get a feeling that whatever the element is working to make it feel like we've gone backwards or we haven't done anything. And boy, I wish they'd lived half as long as I to see where this town used to be.
Yeah.
So
and it takes a long time to put the seeds in place for the later development. For example, we did a marketing plan, the town did a marketing plan to really talk about our strengths and our assets. And now, that marketing plan was used by a number of developers. Rick Wagner, for example, used to help attract the big Y. Yeah. The Hartford Insurance Company is using a lot of Simsbury's vision and planning, plus our wonderful awards and honors of being named one of the best places to live, and their marketing materials. So while the town of Simsbury, as a limited budget, we obviously can't go and spend a lot of money on marketing materials, but what we can do is create a process that is proactive, create a wonderful community in which to live and to work, and then allow the companies to go and market that as a tool as well.
I really usually am not critical. I may read differently from that, but I am being critical of this because it's involving people's time, responding to things, taking time, criticizing an imaginary, lack of action. Mm-hmm. That time needs to be spent other places. I mean, in many cases, these are elected officials who things need to be paid attention to. Mm-hmm. That one has been moving along great, and in like a ridiculous, awful economy. Well, now here's a test question. Like, people are posting their grand list. now, I don't know where we stand on that.
So we'll be announcing, actually, our Board of Selectmen meeting tonight that our grand list, it has grown. This is the first time that it's grown in a number of years. And what that means to the average voter is, and the average resident, is that there's a higher, increased value being brought to the town. So we have more businesses moving in, more taxes being paid. So that's all good news as we start to work on budgets, because we want to attract new taxpayers to our community in order to offset our costs and our services.
But that's the thing, it's like...
So in this economy, when the economy is
everything's
not
going the other
growing,
way,
this is good news for Simsbury. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know, I'm trying to sort it out for myself, because I keep thinking, well, so where are the problems? What? I mean, we're progressing. We're progressing when a lot of others are falling backwards.
We are.
It's puzzling to me. Now, the other thing, and I actually saw this on Simsbury Patch, maybe either I was not a good reader that day or the article wasn't as complete, when you click on this and that. One of the ones was, we're like, what, in towns, our population, the best place to live in Connecticut out of the nation. Mm-hmm. We're right on that list, top list. So then it says the highest tax-paying towns in Connecticut, and I think we were 16th. So I went to look at that, but then I didn't see on what basis it was done, whether it was just mill rate or...
Yeah, and thanks for the opportunity and the question, Jerry, because I think one way to rate towns is looking at mill rates. And it's a little deceiving because mill rates are based on when you last had your revaluation.
Okay.
So, for example, Simsbury just went through our revaluation, and what you really should be focusing on is how much are people paying in taxes. And if you looked for, during our last reval, the average median taxpayer is actually paying exactly what they paid in the previous tax bill.
Okay.
Just the mill rates have changed, but the values of the homes have gone down by about 15%. So towns adjust based on setting the mill rate based on the value of your grand list.
Okay, so
now Avon has a lower grand list, but they are going through reval this year. So you'll see their mill rate will jump next year because they will have equalized.
See, but that's what I couldn't get out of this article. How were they making, actually, what's the dollar figure? I mean, what
exactly?
Is and I didn't see where it got.
It's very confusing. But if you look, what as elected officials, what we try to do is set the tax rate based on the value of the services you get, and it's not what the elected officials set. It's what the taxpayers approve because our budget goes to referendum. What we try to do is keep Simsbury competitive, at the same time create value and services, and so people want to live here and work here. On the town side, I'm really proud that the last 6 years we've actually held the town budget flat, completely flat. So over the last 6 years, you've paid about $123 a month for town services. The difficulty is that Simsbury's town budget is really only a quarter of the overall budget. Right. So what we're seeing is, the education piece has increased, that budget has increased, and some of the assumptions that are made to create the mill rate have been very conservative. So this year, I hope that the taxpayers will join me in making sure that we have a conversation about the complete side of the budget, not just the town side. So when we go to the Board of Finance that sets the mill rate, I think we have to have some serious conversations about how we set that mill rate. The Board of Finance has been extremely conservative, and some could say overtaxing, by only issuing bonds for 10 years. Well, most towns issue bonds for 15, 20, and 30 years. So, if you look at setting the bonds, if you look at the collection rate, Board of Finance underestimates the collection rate based on our experience. So you could say overtax on the collection rate. So this year we have to have some really serious conversations about what our tax rate will be. Because you want to provide quality services, but you also don't want to overtax our residents. And so I think a lot of our surplus numbers, a lot of what we have in our rainy day fund, we're getting close to overtaxing in some of those areas are residents. So we need to have a serious conversation this year, not only on what the town budget is or what the education budget is, but also how those other factors influence what we're setting as a tax rate.
Okay.
I think my goal this year will be to hold the taxes in Simsbury, either freeze them or lower them. And I think we can do that. I think we can do that with the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Ed, and the Board of Finance working together to really challenge some of those assumptions that we've made in the past and really try to give our residents value but not overtax. Okay. And that will be my goal in this budget process.
A couple things came to mind while I was listening to that, thinking grand list and all. And in all of the weeklies, plus you mentioned it on the show, you got the scoop on it. It was that the easement for the Big Y through the International Skating Rink. We talked about that last time, but I saw that come up in the papers. So I don't know. I guess they have to wait for the ground to thaw to break.
Yes,
ground.
And it was this is a very interesting role that the town played. We had asked the town had approved. There's a driveway that goes into the skating center, and the town owns it, but we lease it to the skating center. And Big Y had asked the skating center to use that driveway as part of their traffic circulation. It's what the zoning commission approved. Again, the Board of Selectmen didn't play a role in that approval process because we're not allowed to by state law. Well, the parties could not come to agreement. And the town tried to broker those conversations, and those were not successful. So actually, with the number of conversations I had with our town attorney, we were at a stalemate. And the town, we looked very closely with our staff about what...
Now, the town attorney is still DeCrescenzo?
Yeah, Attorney Bob DeCrescenzo from Updike.
And he had been a former
mayor in East Hartford.
Yeah,
and
okay.
We said, what role can the town play in making sure that this economic development project went forward? And our only option, the town's only option, was to take the road as eminent domain. That's a very serious role that the town plays in situations where there are no other options and there's a public interest in spurring economic development. So I did bring that to the Board of Selectmen. I did put it on the agenda. I was prepared to ask the Board of Selectmen to support the town's role in eminent domain. We did inform the parties, and I was pleased that the parties did come to a private agreement. The role of the town was not needed. And it was coincidental, I'm sure.
So here comes Big Y.
So everything's in place for the project to move forward.
Now, the other thing that I've been noticing, and excuse me, but we're getting close on time, that I just want to compliment the town on, they seem to be so responsive to the storms. And as I drive through other towns, for whatever reason, it seems like their streets are coming apart this winter. And I'm not sure why just so suddenly, but they are, and ours don't seem to be. And then I read that the nation is short on salt. Should we all bring our salt shakers down and add something to town hall?
Not yet. But thanks for allowing me to give a plug to Tom Roy, our Public Works Director, Kevin Clemens, our Assistant Supervisor, and all of the crew, the town crew that plows your roads and my road in Simsbury. We have a very dedicated staff. Our drivers have plowed the same route, some of them for 20 years, so they really know their route, they know the town. They do a great job of being proactive. We have really changed our process by putting salt instead of sand down, which keeps the road from freezing. There is a salt shortage, not to worry because we did purchase enough to get us through the storms, but it is a statewide salt shortage. We're working with the governor's office to get some assistance in doing that. So we should not come down
with our salt shakers?
Not yet. I'll let you know when.
Well, then we have to know, too, should it be sea salt? Should it be kosher? Should it be iodized? We got to get the word out on this early.
And actually, we're monitoring. There are a number of other innovations happening in the plowing area, and now we're looking at molasses as a possible solution. Molasses. So we'll talk about that.
Oh, how sweet it is. What would molasses do? The
role of molasses has been shown to be very effective in preventing the roads from freezing as well. So we're exploring that as well.
That's interesting. Well, of course, now we have another big storm.
We do.
Well, how big is questionable, but it sounds like regardless, we're going to get it.
Yeah, and this has been a tricky winter because it's not just the snow, which we're really good at moving and keeping our roads clear, but it's the rain and the freezing rain and the sleet that washes all that pre-treatment, and that has to be reapplied and doesn't stay on the roads, and that's what's causing us really a tremendous amount of difficulty this winter.
Well, I just want to say thank you to the plowman who
Yes,
does
thank you.
our corner lot, because we've had this contest for years now. I plant it, he digs it up. I plant it, he digs it up. But that corner is there for snow storage, so it's not like I begrudge it. I don't. I mean,
And we
that's
do
just fine.
encourage folks who have a problem to call us. Sometimes we can make modifications in the plowing routes. Sometimes we can go out in the spring. We do have a policy for mailboxes if they're hit by the plows. So we do encourage people to call us and
Well, there was a
give us some
front end
feedback.
loader out there today loading up some of it and taking
Well,
it away.
you know,
I
and
thought,
that's
that's so cool.
What people also don't realize, sometimes folks ask, I get a lot of calls saying, you know, the snow's over and I see a plow pushing the snow, and what has to happen is we have to push the snow back in order to make room for the next storm. So
Right.
you will often see plow trucks coming around your corner, you know, in a sunny day to get ready for that next storm, so there'll be a place to push the next snowstorm.
Yeah. So anyhow, I was going to say go guy, but it may be a gal. Go person. You know, you're doing a great job. So let's see. We've touched on taxes, grand lists, growth. Seemed like the solar. We touched on that. It seemed like there was one other thing that I wanted to ask about, but I'm kind of at a loss.
Well, I know this week is Valentine's Day, so I want to wish you a happy
yeah,
Valentine's
this will be on
Day.
afterwards, but the town is like encouraging.
We're encouraging romance. And just to give a quick tourism plug, we found that marriage licenses are up. Our venues of weddings is up. We are really encouraging people to come down to Town Hall on Valentine's Day and get a free marriage certificate. And we have some justices of the peace that will perform free weddings. And hopefully we'll report back and let you know how
I was
many
a
romantic
justice of
couples
the
have come in.
peace for a few years, but in terms of lasting marriages, I think I'm not batting quite 50%.
Well,
I think I should have been
Maybe it's
stricter.
better that you didn't
Well,
pursue
Mary,
that.
once again,
Great to see you.
thank you very,
Thank
very
you.
much. I appreciate it, and appreciate all of you. And do again, think about volunteering for SCTV, and we'll see you next month on State of the Town.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.